Is TikTok a cyber weapon? This is what we're gonna talk about today. Does the Chinese government own or control TikTok? How easy it is to manufacture a protest with TikTok? And how dangerous TikTok is actually now? Let's dive into it. Hello there, I'm Elena. Welcome to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share the information if you find it interesting and valuable. And let's make truth available for everyone. TikTok is the most popular news source for Americans. We will find out, is it ultimately under the influence of foreign country and exactly the Chinese Communist Party? We will use several sources, as well as my own personal experience because I'm the person who have lived in USSR, who lived in Russia, and I am the only very few people who actually experienced a life under the Communist Party of the USSR, and I can tell you how these things works, because several experts which we will use today, they all living in the democratic countries. They were born in democratic countries. They have never experienced what I experienced, and certain things they simply don't know, and I do. That is why I wanted to share my knowledge with you today. A little part of this video you might see already in my other video, but this video about TikTok would be way deeper and I will give you way more information. But I'll point out certain things which personally I want to introduce you to this man. This is Ryan McBeth. I'll provide the summary of his video TikTok is a cyber weapon. He's an Intel analyst, software architect, and cybersecurity specialist who actually know a lot of things about cybersecurity and how it is all done. But again, he is from the United States. He have never lived in the USSR or in Russia and haven't seen and learned what I did. That is why I'll kinda add to what he has to say. And despite of the news I'm using, I'm verifying all the information. And that is why you will receive way more. And in the end, this would be completely new information. In my opinion, what need to be done, how we can fight foreign propaganda on our soil. This article from New York Times, why the US is forcing TikTok to be sold or banned. And it says that lawmakers in the numerous countries have expressed concerns that TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, may expose sensitive user data. I will tell off the bat that this article, while being interesting and informative, off the bat missing some important stuff. It's not may expose sensitive user data. And it's not just about exposing sensitive user data. This is the difference between TikTok and other social media, and we will dive into it in a minute. In my previous videos about Ukraine and about how United States Senate and Congress passed the bills to last time to give the aid to Ukraine, we learned about what this article is saying in here. Concerns that the Chinese government could access sensitive user data through the short-term video app TikTok, which owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, have promoted the US government to pass legislation banning the social media platform unless it is sold to a government-approved buyer. After President Biden signed into law legislation that gives ByteDance up to a year to divest from TikTok, the company sued the federal government in a case that is likely to end up in front of the Supreme Court. So we will talk why it is done, and in my opinion 1 year it's too much, and we will explain why. And also I will show you closer to the end of this video how exactly TikTok used in the fight against Ukraine. And this is interesting article by CNN. Wait, is TikTok really Chinese? What I want to point out right away off the bat, that app TikTok, which many people know and like, and isn't even allowed to the mainland of China. They're not even using this app in China itself. This is number one interesting fact. Number one question here is Is TikTok Chinese? How much Chinese government has control over it? The article claims that on the first kind of look, basically, the answer would appear to be, which is the keyword, appear to be no. Because it was first incorporated in California, that ByteDance company and so on. But in the end, we will see how it really looks like. Basically, China imposed national security law in the city, and several other laws include so-called golden share, and we will talk about it just in a minute. Basically, the leader of TikTok, a leader of ByteDance company who is owned TikTok, saying that it's Chinese-founded private company operating many businesses in China, but it is global in nature. Chu added that 60% of ByteDance is owned by global institutions, investors, such as certain groups, you can read it yourself, while 20% owned by Zhang and 20% owned by employees around the world. And he said that 3 of the company's 5 board members are Americans. And it all seems legit and seems to be okay. But if to look closely, what we can find out. Like most other China companies, ByteDance is legally compelled to establish all in-house Communist Party committee composed of employees who are partly members. And Zhang Fuping, the vice president and editor-in-chief of the company's Chinese operations, serves as secretary of the party committee. And this committee often holds sessions to study the party and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. One session in 2018 was joined by Jiang Yiming and his management team, according to the Beijing government. Also, like its competitors, ByteDance has to allow the Chinese government to take a so-called golden share in one of its key subsidiaries. I'll explain in a minute what all of this means. Golden shares give the owners, usually governments, some level of control over companies. In China, such shares are called special management shares and give the government decisive voting rights or veto power over certain business decisions, or in this case of internet companies, content. Basically, China is a pale copy of the USSR. I have lived in USSR and I saw what Communist Party does. Communist Party of the USSR has full control of everything. Yeah, there were companies which belonged to the government. There was no private business at the time. All the companies, schools, hospitals, plants, factories, anything, collective farms were owned by the government. But they had their own leaders, they had their own CEOs, and they supposed to be kind of like a business. But above all of these businesses, was always the Communist Party. The leaders of the CEOs and everybody, they were members of the Communist Party of the USSR, and they could be invited. They always was attending Communist Party meetings, and they were reporting, literally like in the army, the low-rank officer reporting to the higher-rank officer. In a way, yes, sir. This was CEOs of every company, of every business, of every school, hospital, university, anything, were reporting to the Communist Party leader of the city, of the region, and of the country eventually. And the decisions of the Communist Party were mandatory to every CEO, every leader of any business, which were government businesses, government organizations, all of them. And even after Perestroika, when this thing collapsed and they started to be independent businesses, it started to be independent companies, and the Communist Party lost a lot of its influence, they still were influential above major companies. And even in the small businesses if they choose to, but it wasn't as direct as in the past, when the Communist Party leader of the city, for example, could invite the chief of steelworks plant where I worked at some point in time, or a chief of university where I worked at some point in time, basically on the carpet in his office, and tell him what to do, and tell him what the government want to do, and if this decision gonna hurt the company, and make it less profitable or anything of that kind. It does not matter. They must obey the decision. This is how it worked. And so is in China. Literally, I just showed you that the leaders of ByteDance company are members of Chinese Communist Party, and Chinese Communist Party has a special golden share in the company, which giving them a right to control the company and tell them what to do. This is not a guess, this is a fact. This is another interesting article. TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, so why doesn't it exist there? Well, there is different company, which basically ruling from the same company. It is not TikTok. It's called, if I pronounce it right, Douyin. And this company must follow all the rules. Huge censorship exists in China. And it is one of the world's strictest censorship regimes. China, Russia, and so on. They literally deciding what to show people when it doesn't. The huge protest in Tiananmen Square in 1989, where Chinese government killed people for the protesting, it's not even appear on the searches in TikTok, in Douyin company, in that app. In TikTok it does appear and so on, but it doesn't mean that China doesn't control TikTok. Now let's see what Ryan McBeth has to say about TikTok and how to organize protests using TikTok and how it was organized. So it's already happened. This is a very important video, TikTok as a cyber weapon, by Ryan McBeth. Ryan McBeth is saying that there is a difference between TikTok and many other media in very worse. TikTok is way worse. Some people are saying, oh yeah, they probably use it as a cyber weapon as just stealing information or something like that.
TikTok is really no different than any other social media when it comes to that, but there is a huge difference. TikTok is also a cyber weapon in the terms of manufacturing disinformation and creating agents who live in the US and don't even know they're doing the bidding of a foreign government.
In his video, McBeth is showing how it's done. Look at the users. How many users monthly watching TikTok?
150 million monthly active US TikTok users, and that was as of March 2023. The American news channel CNN reaches about 53 million monthly households. So a unit that's ultimately reporting to the Chinese Communist Party has 3 times as many American viewers as CNN.
After that, Mr. McBeth showing how TikTok does it, how people using TikTok to organize, let's say, protests, let's say in the United States, to block some roads and this and that. And basically they're targeting women of certain age, because apparently if you invite women, men will come anyway. And this is how the disruption of your, I don't know, roads or this and that, how disruption of the life of your country is done. This is how your children and young people get targeted and get involved with all the bad guys from other countries and doing biddings not just for Russia, but from any other wingnut lunatics in the world. Whoever working for some bad guys who actually wanted to do something bad in your country. Mr. McBeth said, I am deathly afraid of TikTok. I handle it like I would handle plutonium. And the difference between TikTok and other social media is that TikTok already conducted a cyber warfare strike against the United States. It urged its followers to contact Congress, which overwhelmed the congressional phone lines, interrupting the business of Congress. And they basically told the Congress what to do about TikTok and how to act and so on. So foreign country influencing American taxpayers, American voters in a huge scale. As McBeth said, over 150 million monthly active TikTok users, 50% increase, 3 times more than CNN. So TikTok, the company who is ultimately reporting to the Chinese government, has 3 times as many American viewers than CNN. And the USA allowed this to happen. Mr. McBeth himself compared that the USA allowing TikTok to brainwash its citizens to the potential scenario when during Ronald Reagan time, TV channels from the USSR would be allowed to broadcast and spread propaganda in the US. I would go even further than that. Hitler is already attacked the world. In this case, Putin has already attacked Ukraine. It's already full-scale invasion, full-blown war going on for the last 2 years. And before that, the war is totally going on for 10 years. It just full-scale invasion started in February 2022. And mass killings of people, torture, and so many other crimes, war crimes, has been committed in Ukraine, and it's all is going on. Meanwhile, we allow the new Hitler influence our citizens and letting basically his Goebbels and all the propaganda which Russia is spreading around the world, and China helping Russia to spread Russian propaganda about the war in Ukraine on TikTok. And I'll show you how it was done on the example of Ukraine and Alexei Reznikov. How it was done to him, what TikTok actually already has done to hurt Ukraine. This is my video on massive Kremlin disinformation campaign to undermine Zelensky exposed. In this video I'm talking about TikTok and showing some videos from which we've seen the part of it we saw just now. And this is a chunk talking about Reznikov and how TikTok did it to him. Just a few days ago, Anne Applebaum is a staff writer for The Atlantic and Pulitzer Prize winning historian, published a book. I bought this book. It's called Autocracy in Corporation. In this book, she is going about several different autocracies, Russia, China, and several others. But what about important to know about the China and Russia is that right now the dictatorships basically of the world are acting together as a corporation. Despite their political differences, despite their ideological differences, despite their religious differences, they united with a hatred of the West and trying to destroy us and our society. They try to destroy the rule of law and go back to centuries before when might was right, who is stronger could go grab everything from people who are weaker and so on. And that is why those parts of that autocracy incorporation helping each other to spread each other's propaganda. In this case, I'm talking about Russia and China. And simply, that is why China is helping Russia to spreading its propaganda about Ukraine and war in Ukraine. So TikTok is spreading Chinese and Russian propaganda and disinformation in the USA and in many other countries, include Ukraine, on a massive scale. One of TikTok's main disinformation campaigns is dedicated to the war in Ukraine. And that is why TikTok must be stopped as soon as possible. And some people might contradict me and say, oh, it's a music app, it's this and that. Being a person from the USSR, there is nothing which is not political for the dictatorships and / cults, kind of like the USSR or Russia or China. Everything is dedicated to one purpose and one purpose only, to create positive idea about the ruthless dictatorship country abroad. And if the USSR is at least was shy and trying to put best foot forward and trying to make world like them and lie to them, and so was China in the past and this and that, now they completely threw out the pretenses and they are solely dedicated to eventually destroy our society, our rule of law, our way of life, and completely everything which is decent and human being point of way. So everybody should have rights, people should have human rights, and it's supposed to be the priority, not for the dictatorships. And the bloody war in Ukraine is the exact proof of that. Putin already killed, wounded more than 570,000 of Russians. Only Russians during the war in Ukraine, throwing them in meat grinder every day. Over 1,000 Russian soldiers, just Russian, not counting even Ukrainians. Putin is killing every day in his hope to stay in power for the next 100 days and maybe wait until Mr. Trump will get elected or something like that. So it's complete disregard to human life in every way. And everything, music, sport, art, literature, everything in the USSR and in China is dedicated to that purpose, to promote their countries and destroy the democratic world. So the question is how to defend our countries from TikTok, Russian and Chinese propaganda and disinformation. This would be my opinion based on the facts I provided to you and based of my own experience living in the USSR and dealing with Russian and Soviet propaganda. First of all, we need to be aware of the danger of TikTok and foreign propaganda. And absolutely have no doubts that TikTok is not the same as Facebook or any other social network, not even Twitter, because TikTok is already attacked the United States. None of other ones still did any of this. They did a lot of other things, stealing personal information, spreading disinformation like Twitter, for example, but not up to the scale of TikTok. And they are definitely controlled by Chinese Communist Party. According to Mr. McBeth, banning TikTok might not be an option, but perhaps it is possible to allow TikTok to exist, but force a sale to an American company, or just restrict social media usage to people who are over 18 years of age. And this is what the United States is trying to do now. But Chinese probably would rather United States doesn't have TikTok at all, then it would be sold to Americans, because in that case, they wouldn't be able to spread Chinese propaganda. I personally contributed to banning RT, Russia Today, in Canada, so perhaps this option is not out of the question. In my opinion, the people of democratic countries need to realize that the information war with Russia is ongoing. In this war, real people are dying every day. In Ukraine and in some other countries as well, so it is not smart to allow foreign governments from countries that have proclaimed their desire to destroy our countries to influence and manipulate our citizens. Defending our countries from TikTok and other foreign propaganda and misinformation like Russian, Chinese, but not necessarily just them, Iranian or any other members of so-called autocracy and corporations, according to Anna Applebaum. It requires a variety of approaches. Number one, media literacy and education. Educate citizens about the dangers of misinformation and propaganda, spread through platforms like TikTok, as well as through Russian and Chinese state-backed media outlets. Invest in educational programs that teach critical thinking skills and media literacy, helping citizens recognize and analyze propaganda and disinformation. In this case, my YouTube channel can help, where I actually provide the facts to back up everything I say about Russian-Ukrainian war. Number two, regulation and oversight. Implement regulations to hold social media platforms accountable for the content they host. This could include enforcing transparency about the origins of content and algorithms, as well as age restriction on certain platforms. China, by the way, has age restrictions, very severe ones. Implement regulations and oversight mechanisms to monitor and mitigate the spread of propaganda and disinformation on social media platforms like TikTok. This may include age restrictions, content moderations, and transparency measures. For this purpose, for example, one of my subscribers on Quora created the whole system. He developed the whole system, how to go about it. Not necessarily, he was talking about TikTok, but the internet safety. And now I'm trying to connect him with Canadian government to probably implement some of it. Tech solutions. Number three, explore technological solutions such as AI-based content moderation tools to detect and remove harmful content more effectively. Number four, this is very important. International cooperation. Work with other democratic nations to share information and strategies for combating foreign propaganda and disinformation campaign. If dictatorships created autocracy in corporation, we should create democracy in corporation. We should unite our forces to fight propaganda and disinformation, and all the democratic countries supposed to unite their efforts in this sphere. Number five, this is very important as well. Support independent journalism. Strengthen independent media outlets and blogs on YouTube and other social networks that uphold journalistic integrity and provide accurate, unbiased information to the public. Encourage fact-checking initiatives and investigative reporting to debunk false narratives, like, for example, Bellingcat, or a YouTube channel of Jake Bro, or Ryan McBeth's channel, who is single-handedly is doing a job of the government to help debunk misinformation and propaganda. Number 6. Diversification of information sources. Promote a diverse range of sources for news and information, reducing reliance on single platforms or sources susceptible to manipulation. Number 7. Engagement and dialogue. Encourage open dialogue and engagement between government, civil society, and technology companies to address the challenges posed by propaganda and disinformation effectively. Number 8. Transparency and accountability. Hold social media platforms accountable for their role in dismantling or fighting propaganda and disinformation. Encourage transparency in algorithms and content moderation practices to prevent manipulation. Number 9. Counter-narratives. Develop and promote counter-narratives that expose the falsehoods spread by propaganda and disinformation campaigns, emphasizing truth, evidence, and democratic values. By implementing a combination of these strategies, countries can better defend themselves against the threats posed by TikTok and foreign propaganda and disinformation, safeguarding their citizens' access to accurate information and protecting democratic values. And we need to do it fast. China and Russia, especially Russia and the USSR, was doing it all the time for decades. The information war has never stopped, not even in the Gorbachev time. These channels about China, like Serpenza or Lao Y86, there was 2 bloggers. This one has 1.56 million subscribers, but he's basically a blogger. He's not in media, he's not representing a country. It's just a person who married to a Chinese woman, lived in China, actually liked China, but showing China how it was, exactly how it was, without even trying to find something bad about China or anything like that. Even that Chinese government couldn't stand. Chinese government literally was going after those 2 bloggers who was traveling China by motorcycles and filming travel videos, up to the point that they had to run away from China, basically escaped with their lives, and they even trying to attack them when Serpenza, for example, was in the United States. They were going after 2 bloggers, viciously attack them and trying to destroy them. It's just the bloggers who, just like me, only they have bigger audience, telling the truth about China and showing China for how it is, not even deliberately trying to make China look bad or anything. But they don't show in the perfect China China wants to show the world. This is alone telling people how horrible in China the government influence and attacks on people who disagree, and censorship. Censorship was in USSR, in Russia, in China, and these people are basically victims of that censorship, up to the point that the China deliberately trying to set them up and do literally bad things to these people. Just people. Literally, not even a journalist, just regular people who happen to upset Chinese government. Have a great day and write in the comments what you think of my video and what information you have on the matter. Thank you very much. Please think logically and verify information before spreading it. Not sure, don't spread it. Please don't help Putin kill people in Ukraine and in other countries. Learn the truth and stay informed. See you later.